Good morning, everyone. I hope that or good afternoon for my homeroom. I hope you guys have been good for Mrs. Brackley and that you are going to act like responsible fifth graders as you listen to me read aloud via video. I am taking my last final for college ever today, so I'm not with you, but that doesn't mean that we are not going to read Poppy and fill out our student guides. So I'm going to start reading chapter 9. Chapter 9 is called On Her Way, which I think indicates that Poppy might be going somewhere. So I'm going to get reading. We're reading all the way to chapter 12 today, and then after I'm done reading, when the video's over, then you are going to work on your student guides for any of the chapters that we covered today. And I'm going to mark off which questions you're not supposed to answer, and then Miss Rackley will be able to tell you which ones you can go ahead and skip, because you don't have to answer all of them today. Okay, we're going to get started. Ready? Chapter 9, On Her Way. Once past the rusty water pump, Poppy had to cross Old Orchard. Mr. Ocox's permission has not been required here. Even better, the grass was high among the old twisted apple trees, providing good camouflage. Here and there, delicate pink lady slippers bloomed. Berry bushes were heavy with fruit. Bluebirds, jays, and warblers flitted by. Grasshoppers leaped about joyfully. Oh, my, Poppy murmured as she rested halfway across. It is too nice of a day to be worried and sad. She was sitting beneath the shade of a snowberry bush, nibbling on a succulent dandelion stem. Above, only a few high-flying clouds floated in the blue sky. The graceful drift of clouds reminded Poppy of her secret desire, something she had never told anyone, not even Ragweed. She suspected he would have teased her. Once, when they were in the Gray House attic, chewing through some old magazines, she had come upon pictures of the old ballroom dancing team of Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. Here the couple dipped. There they soared. Here they spun. Poppy was enraptured. Enraptured? You guys should figure out what that word means. From that moment on, her greatest desire was to be a ballroom dancer. Oh, to glide effortlessly across the floor in the arms of a handsome mouse. Forgetting everything for a moment, Poppy plucked a pair of lady slippers and fitted them to her feet. How cool, how soft and delicate they were, as if someone were kissing her toes. She jumped up, lifted her arms, flexed her paws, elegantly she hoped, leaned her head back, and fluttered her eyes, and twirled about just as in the pictures. Round and round she spun. Suddenly, as if a voice actually whispered onto her ear, Poppy recalled something sweet Cicely had told her many times, that the only live mouse is an alert mouse. Feeling alarmed and embarrassed, Poppy promptly kicked the lady slippers, scampered beneath the protection of some stinkweed, and scanned the skies. Yes, she must keep on guard, even though Mr. Ocox was probably sound asleep. Here's a picture of Poppy dancing around with the flower petals, the pink lady slippers on her feet. She looks so joyful and free, but she's not free yet because Mr. Ocox is still on the prowl. Mr. Ocox was not asleep. He was flying over the marsh in the direction of Bannock Hill. Though working daylight hours displeased him, he was convinced it was necessary. Ever since Lungwort had requested permission to move some of the mouse family to Newhouse, Mr. Ocox had been uneasy. He kept wondering about the mice. Had they discovered what he had discovered? Did they know something he did not? He knew the reason they gave for moving to Newhouse, but were they telling the truth? Then there was Lungwort's daughter Poppy, who had escaped him twice. The effrontery. It's another good word. How had she done it? The owl kept asking himself, did she possess special skills? Why had Lungwort brought her to that meeting? Was it to mock him? Was she going to take over the old fool? And why did this business of Newhouse and the matter of Poppy occur at the same time? Was it just a coincidence? Could there be a connection? A conspiracy. The more questions he asked, the more nervous the owl became. Whatever the truth, Mr. Ocox decided that he had to remain on alert. Sleep less, patrol more. As his mother used to tell him, an alert owl is a well-fed owl. In particular, he must keep his eyes open for that mouse, the one named Poppy. Scampering from bush to bush, Poppy soon reached the banks of Glitter Creek. There she stopped to gaze nervously at the far side of the towering trees of Dinwood Forest. Her first task, however, was to get over the water. At the spot where she stood, Glitter Creek was as wide as the length of Grey House. Usually the water flowed with tranquility. Not now. Though the bright water was moving far less rapidly than on the night of the storm, the flow still tumbled, twisted, and foamed around many rocks that stuck up from the creek bed. Poppy realized that she'd never be able to swim across. She could walk downstream and cross the bridge, but the bridge was situated exactly where Mr. Ocox had his watching tree, the last spot she desired to revisit. No, as Poppy saw it, the only way for her to get across the creek was by jumping from rock to rock. She climbed a tree stump for a better view and set about figuring a route. Though it took a while, she found a path that required 14 jumps. The only problem would come on the 9th. On that rock, a turtle was sleeping. Even so, she thought she'd have enough room to make a quick landing and leap away. The turtle might not even notice. On the creek bank again, Poppy crouched, ready to take her first jump. Just as she was about to spring, she stopped. Once over the water, how could she return home? Even as she hesitated, a breeze fluttered Ragweed's earring. The tickle it brought reminded Poppy of the reasons for her mission. Resolved anew, she gave a leap and landed deftly on the first of the rocks, then the second, and then the third. On she jumped, gaining confidence as she progressed. The 8th jump, however, required a pause. Her next leap would land her on the turtle's rock, but because she had shifted position, there was no longer any room for her to land. "Hey, Turtle!" Poppy shouted. "Would you please move?" The turtle slept on. In search of an alternate route, Poppy noted a small, low rock not far upstream. It was covered with moss. To reach it would require a difficult, though not impossible, jump. She saw no other choice. Poppy took a deep breath and kicked. Her leap was far enough. She landed right on the small rock, but unfortunately its moss was wet and slimy. The moment she hit it, her feet shot out right from under her. A quick skid plopped her right into and under the water. Spitting and coughing, Poppy clawed her way back to the surface. For an instant she floated downstream. Then a wave picked her up and pinned her against another rock. "Help! Help!" she cried. The next moment another wave whisked her away. Mr. Ocox, gliding over Farmer Lamal's field, heard Poppy's call for help. From the west, wasn't it? He banked sharply and headed to the direction of Glitter Creek. Paddling furiously, Poppy struggled to keep her nose above water. Despite her efforts, she was swept on. She spun downstream like a whirligig. Then, abruptly, she felt herself wedged between two rocks. Water washed over her. As she gasped for air, she sensed that if she stayed put, it would only be a matter of time, a short time, before she drowned. Wrenching one paw free, she groped for something to cling to. What she found was the slimy root of a water lily. She tried to hold on, but the root slipped from her grasp. She reached out again and managed to find the lily's stem. Snorting to keep her nose and mouth free of water, Poppy hauled in. Bit by bit, she began to rise. Something in the water of Glitter Creek caught Mr. Ocox's eyes. To his surprise, he saw a mouse struggling with a water lily. Poppy worked frantically to pull herself higher. She was now only belly deep. With a few more pulls on the stem, she would be safe. Circling above, Mr. Ocox watched the mouse struggle to climb atop the rock. The moment it reached it, he was prepared to dive. Poppy nearly had her footing on the rock when the lily stem snapped. Her balance lost, she tumbled back into the creek. The moment she struck the water, a wave pummeled her below the surface. Just as Mr. Ocox dived, the mouse that he was watching suddenly dropped into the water. When it failed to reappear, he assumed the creature had drowned. His patience frazzled. He pumped his wings, rose on a gust of air, and turned toward Newhouse. A day had passed since he had been there. He needed to check it again. I wonder what he needs to check again. I wonder what he's found. Poppy, desperate for air, bobbed to the surface like a cork. Once again she was swept along. Her strength was ebbing. Desperately she sought something to hold on to. She found nothing. Down the creek she went. Then the creek widened. The water grew less turbulent. Aware that this was probably the last chance she'd have to save herself, Poppy summoned her remaining strength and began to swim frantically. Slowly, painfully, she pulled free of the stream's main force. She bumped against a stone, then ricocheted into the calm backwater. She stretched her toes and touched bottom. Half crawling, half swimming, she clawed her way up the creek bank. Then she reached the grass. She flung herself down, coughing violently. For a long time Poppy lay on her back, eyes closed, capable of only gasping for breaths. Then she rolled over and threw up the last of the swallowed water. At last she gave a shuddering groan of relief. She's okay. On the northern edge of Dimwood Forest, Mr. Ocox found a branch that allowed him to observe New House without being seen. From his perch he looked past a dirt road, an old barn, a cornfield, a salt lick, and a lawn. What he sought was something else. Something he saw on the new barn next to the house. When he saw it again, he gasped. It was still there. It must be living there. Whatever hopes he had evaporated. Poppy opened her eyes. Though her vision was bleary, she was able to gaze up at the sky through the petals of a daisy. She was quite certain it was the most beautiful flower she had ever seen. Anxious to know where she'd landed, she sat up and looked about. Only then did she realize she had come ashore near the bridge, and on the far side of the creek. Feeling pleased with herself, she considered the nearby trees with pleasure. The next second, Poppy's house vanished. She'd come ashore on one spot in the whole world she at least wanted to be, right next to Mr. Ocox's charred oak. Alright, so now we're on chapter 10. It's called Dimwood Forest. So she's at Dimwood Forest now. Poppy searched desperately for a place to hide. Glitter Creek ran behind her. Before her stood Dimwood Forest. There was little choice. She plunged among the shadowy tree trunks and began running wildly, her only desire to put as much distance between herself and Mr. Ocox's tree as possible. It did not take long before an exhausted Poppy had to stop. Her sides ached. She was hot and cold all at once. Her feet felt as though it would break out. They would break out through her heart felt as though it would break out through her ribs. Gasping for breath, she crept beneath a leaf, then peered about to see where she had come. It was as if the sun had been stolen. Only thin ribbons of light swept down through the green and milky air syrupy with the scent of pine, huckleberry, and juniper. From the rolling emerald carpet earth, fingers of lacy ferns curled up, above which the massive fir and pine trees stood, pillar-like, to support an invisible sky. Hovering over everything was a silence as deep as the trees were tall. Poppy gazed at it in awe. She was not sure what she thought Dimwood Forest would be like. She knew only that she'd never imagined it so vast, so dense, and so dark. The sight made her feel immensely isolated and small. Feeling small made her a part of all that she saw. Being part of it made her feel immense. It was so terribly confusing. The silence was broken by the sound of sharp tapping. Poppy ducked, but nothing happened. From another direction came a yelp, a screech. Poppy shivered. Closer still was the smothered scurry of something slithery and unseen. A tree groaned, a branch snapped. There was the passing scamper of little feet. Poppy's heart raced just as fast. She could only guess what animals were making such sounds. Automatically she thought of porcupines, recalling vividly the frightening picture her father had shown the family. Had not Mr. Ocox given a special warning about the particularly bloodthirsty porcupine he'd seen recently in the forest? He had. Poppy grew even more tense. She had to find a place to regain her composure. Anxiously, she gazed about for a safe place to rest. What she found was a massive boulder, its top half matted with dark moss, its lower part embedded in the earth. Beneath it was hollow. Poppy bounded over to the rock. Close up, the hollow proved to be more like a cave, utterly dark at the deep end. What was there? She edged forward, sniffing the air. She froze. A distinct animal smell alarmed all of her senses. Unable to identify what it might be, she listened intently. Ears flicking this way and that, seeing and hearing nothing, she crept slowly forward until she was completely inside the cave. Was anything there? Only when she was quite certain nothing was there, she began to clean herself. Mr. Ocox, from a hiding place on the far side of Dimwood Forest, watched the barn at Newhouse intently. His nervous talons clenched and unclenched the branch upon which he was perched. At first he tried to deny the fear he felt inside him, but it was growing too fast. It could not be denied that he, Ocox, the great horned owl, should feel fear. It made him livid. It was for others to be fearful, not him. It's unfair, he hissed. Unnatural. Suddenly, hearing his own outburst, he looked about in alarm, anxious that some other creature might see and hear him. No matter what, his fearfulness must never be known. He spread his wings and glided silently away from Newhouse. In a temper, he recalled the mouse he had seen in Glitter Creek. Perhaps the body had been tossed up on the bank. He was so upset that he didn't want to eat anything, even if it was already dead. When he reached the creek, he began to fly upstream, moving low over the water. Little does he know, Poppy's not there. She made it. Poppy paused for her fur cleaning now and again to gaze out in the forest. It should not have been called Dimwood, she told herself, but Darkwood. She kept asking herself how she had ever thought she'd find her way through such a fearsome place. The likelihood of her survival was growing slimmer, moment by moment, and though at the moment she felt relatively safe, she worried that she had not gotten far away from Mr. Ocox's watching tree. But which way should she go? She had no idea where she was. She was lost and knew it. She recalled the vow she'd made on Bannock Hill never to leave home again. She considered going back. She wanted to. But then she thought about what would happen if she did return, and with nothing to report to Lungwort about Mr. Ocox, life would be miserable. Poppy sighed. It was so hard to be courageous, so hard to be a coward. Going forward or back seemed equally awful. So much easier to do nothing. But if she did nothing, she would surely perish. What should she do? Trying to stay calm, she reminded herself that by pressing on, she at least had a chance to make a difference for her family. Now, if only she knew which direction would lead her to Newhouse. Mr. Ocox concluded that the mouse he had seen in the water was gone, washed away. At least there was no evidence of its existence, dead or alive. In any case, he still seemed so upset by what he had seen at Newhouse that he had found it hard to concentrate on searching. His head ached. His heart ached. His head ached even more. All he could do was think about getting some sleep. He would go home. He flew deep into Dimwood Forest, moving in a northerly direction. Poppy peered nervously out beneath the boulder. If this is midday, she said to herself, I'd hate to be in the forest at night. She considered staying and sleeping for a while, but the distinct smell of another animal made her too nervous. It certainly seemed not to be about, but what if it came back while she slept? Too risky. If she wanted to sleep, and she did, she'd have to find a better place. Checking in all directions, paying particular attention to the angle of the slanting rays of sunlight, and knowing that moss grew up on the north side of trees, Poppy made up her mind that she could make a rough determination as to which way east was, and the direction from which she had come. As she recalled the lay of the land, Newhouse was to the north. She would go north then, hoping for the best. Mr. Ocox came on the rest of his gray, lifeless tree, a snag that was his nest. With its top broken off, the snag rose twice as high as a blackberry bush from the ground. A high hole served as an entrance to its hollowness. For a while the owl sat on the edge of its nest and stared moodily before him, thinking only about what he had seen at Newhouse. Just to think about it made him tense. He felt that he was in grave danger. The question was, what kind of danger? Was he about to lose his food? Would he have to fight? If he did, he knew he might be defeated. If he was defeated, would he have to move to another territory? Was there anything he could do about the situation? It was all so painful to contemplate. Fretful, the owl scanned his neighborhood, paying special attention to the very large hollow log on the ground not far from his snag. Its ancient, thick bark was rust-colored and encrusted with yellow fungus that looked like a stubby angel wing. A clutch of pale mushrooms grew from the rotting soil around it. Just the thought of the creature who had recently come to live in the log made Mr. Ocox angry. It was as if the whole world were ganging up on him all at once. Too tired to think about that now, Mr. Ocox dropped down into his nest. Feeling safe there, he did not take long to fall into a restless sleep. Poppy made her way northward toward the forest in short runs. She could only hope she chose in the right direction. Sometimes she paused to eat, but she felt too insecure to stop for long. Her toes ached with tension. An hour later, Poppy stopped to nibble on some pine seeds. As she ate, she noticed a huge log partly embedded in the earth. Covered with yellow fungus, it seemed very old and appeared to be hollow. Poppy considered it. If the log was unoccupied, it might be the perfect place for her to rest with safety. Then she noticed the remains of a large gray tree. Its top was gone and it had a hole in its side. It might be safer than the log, but after studying it, Poppy decided the hole was too high for her to climb to. The log would be better. It was a good choice. Wary, she crept forward. The closer she came to the log, the stronger grew a scent unfamiliar to her. She sensed trouble. She was still sniffing when she heard the sound of a twig snapping behind her. She spun about and gasped. A red fox, long bushy tail, swishing back and forth, was trotting in her direction, its sharp nose to the ground. Poppy understood immediately. The fox was following her scent. Turning back, Poppy took a flying leap that landed her right in the log's open end. The fox, hearing and then seeing her, barked sharply and closed in, its lips drawn back from its sharp teeth. Poppy stood trembling before the log. Every instinct in her body warned her not to enter. When she looked back, however, the fox was almost upon her. There was no time to waste. She dived into the log. The fox stuck its nose in after her, its barking booming about Poppy like a cannonade. Trying to get away, she moved deeper into the musky dark. Suddenly she stopped. At the far end of the log, she heard the distinct sound of heavy breathing. It was exactly what she had feared. Another creature was already in the log. Hastily, she turned toward the log opening. She never reached it. The fox's lolling red tongue and sharp bright teeth barricaded the way. Poppy stared back into the log's darkness. The breathing and rattling were drawing nearer. She was trapped. And that's the end of chapter 10, but I have to go pick up my homeroom from specials, so I'm going to pause the video, and I need you guys to stand up, stretch all at a 0 level, put your arms out, touch your toes, stretch around, and then find a seat back where you were sitting and sit quietly for the next part of the video to start. Okay, so now we're on chapter 11. It's Erethizon dorsatum. That's what it's called. I wonder what that means. In an obscure murk of the log's interior, Poppy crouched tensely. Slouching slowly out of the dark came a flat-faced beast with a blunt black snout and fierce grizzled whiskers. Its eyes were heavily lidded as though it had just awakened. The creature moved ponderously, with a waddle and a rattle. Its stench was powerful enough to make Poppy clamp a paw over her nose. The moment the animal caught sight of her, it came to a clumsy stop and blinked. "What the bee's butt are you doing here, Furball?" it snarled. Poppy, wishing she knew what kind of animal she was facing, could only whisper, "It's just me, sir." The name was Aerith, the animal snapped. Erethizon dorsatum, but I just get called Aerith. What's more, I'm a grump, and you just woke me up, so don't try to slick me down with slug slop. "I'm truly sorry I woke you, Mr. Aerith," Poppy said. "What are those things on your head?" the beast growled. "Flat balloons or ears? The name's Aerith, E-R-E-T-H, and stop your barking." "Please, Aerith, it's not me barking." "Then who the frog flip is making that racket?" "It's a fox at the entrance of the log." "Some idiot friend of yours?" "Oh no, sir, not my friend." "Who the dung beetle bit are you, anyway?" Aerith suddenly demanded. "You're so small I can hardly see you." "I'm a deer mouse, a girl deer mouse." "I didn't ask what you are. I don't give a bug's bathwater about that. I asked for your name." "Poppy." "Poppy? What kind of idiotic name is that?" "Please, it's a family tradition. We're named after flowers and fruits." Erethizon dorsatum is my name, a Latin name, but you kids don't learn Latin anymore, do you?" "I don't know what Latin is, sir. I mean, Aerith." The beast sniffed loudly. "The whole forest is full of idiots, just like that fox." During this conversation, the fox continued to bark and whine, occasionally even digging furiously at the log entrance. Pop, Fop, Snop, Aerith cried, or whatever your name is, would you tell that fox to shut up? It's Poppy, and if I tell him, I don't think he will. Why not? He wants to eat me, Poppy said faintly. Eat you? Yes. Jerk, Aerith said scornfully. But then all meat eaters are jerks. Ever notice that? I mean, did you ever meet a meat eater who wasn't loud and aggressive? Did you? Never mind. Just get out of here and leave me alone. I can't, Poppy cried. Why the bat bilge can't you? I just told you, Poppy pleaded. If I go out, he'll eat me. Look here, Aerith cried. Whatever your name is, don't you have any guts? Please, it's Poppy. Oh, Weasel Wonk, I don't care what your name is. All I'm saying is, if a creature can't take care of himself, he has no business sneaking into my house, waking an old coot like me in the middle of the day, and asking for my help. I never asked you for your help, an exasperated Poppy replied. Can't you understand anything? That fox chased me. Do you think I like being in here? It stinks. Aerith blinked. Oh, all right, he growled. I suppose I better talk some sense into that meat mauler. Just go get out of my way, he snarled as he began to waddle forward. It's your lookout and not mine if you get pricked by one of these quills. Poppy's heart clutched. Did you just say quills? She stammered. Of course I said quills, Fuzzball. Yes, but what? Poppy was dizzy with fear. Her knees shook. She found it hard to swallow. What are you? Don't you have eyes? Aerith screeched, or are those spots on your face buttons? I'm a porcupine. Porcupine? The word turned Poppy numb. She could hardly breathe. She could not think. Floppy or ploppy, Aerith bellowed, will you get your flea-flicking self out of my way? Poppy dived against the pulpy wall of the log and squeezed herself flat to allow Aerith room. Even so, as the porcupine waddled by, his quills raked across her belly like a rusty comb. Never, despite all she'd confronted, had Poppy been so terrified. Aerith, however, continued to make his ponderous way toward the log's entrance, where the fox was still barking and yelping. Poppy felt sure that once the fox was disposed of, the prickly monster would turn on her. First, she would shoot her with his quills. Next, he would stab her. Then he would skewer her. Finally, he would chop her into tiny bits and eat her up. For a moment, Poppy considered offering herself to the fox. If the choice was between getting swallowed in one gulp or being tortured by this porcupine, surely death by fox would be preferable. Poppy stared into the darkness of the log. Perhaps there was an escape hole, but, frozen by the terror of her predicament, she could not move. Instead, her eyes turned toward the entrance, certain she was about to witness some ghastly carnage. Sure enough, when Aerith reached the log opening, Poppy heard him screech. Fox, you braying bag of bones, what's all this hullabaloo? Can't an old creature get some quiet in his own home? I'm sorry, Aerith, Fox returned in a voice that was at best sniveling. I didn't know you were here. Just trying to grab a mouse who ran into your place. A snack, nothing more. Not trying to bother you. No harm meant, just a midday nibble. Don't nag me about your nibbles, you nitwit, Aerith bellowed. When I say get lost, I mean do it. Now, Aerith, let's be... Fox did not finish his sentence. Instead, Poppy heard Aerith cry, I said get, Broomtail. This order was followed by a whack, a yelp of pain, and a frantic scramble of paws, concluding with a barking and whining that grew faint with amazing rapidity. Poppy was sure the fox was being devoured, but more frightening still, she saw the porcupine wheel about and start to waddle back down the log in her direction. Poppy panicked. She turned and fled toward her own one hope of escape, the log's other end. The farther into the log Poppy went, the more foul-smelling it became. Worse, she had increasingly difficulty seeing where she was going. Sure enough, she slammed into the log's far end. There was no escape hole. Stunned and unsteady on her feet, heart beating so hard she was sure it would burst, a terrified Poppy turned to confront the porcupine. Her one remaining hope was to try and slip by the beast. Though Poppy knew she risked a severe shredding, she was certain it was her only chance. Slop, pop, bebop, the porcupine cried. Where the snake sweat are you? Come out of here! Gasping for breath, Poppy braced herself against the rear wall of the log and got ready to bolt and die. Aerith's face, grinning hideously, loomed out of the dark at her. "Poppy," he cried, "you wretched excuse for a runt. Why the devil are you hiding in my toilet?" So now we're on chapter 12. What Poppy learns. Poppy's about to learn her fate, I think. "Don't stab me," Poppy cried, through chattering teeth. "Don't kill me." Aerith blinked. "What?" he said. Poppy staggered forward, fell to her knees, and held up her paws and bowed her head. "Don't eat me," she implored. "What the lice lips are you talking about?" Aerith asked with genuine bewilderment. Poppy gazed up tearfully. "If you're going to kill me, do it quickly. Just don't torture me, please." "Why would I want to torture you?" "Because that's what porcupines do when you catch a mice. You torture them and eat them." "Eat mice!" Eric exclaimed. "Hit the puke switch and duck. Meat disgusts me, nauseates me, revolts me. I'm a vegetarian, jerk. I eat bark." "Bark? You saying I'm a liar?" the porcupine roared. "Well, no, except nothing. I'm kind. I'm gentle. I'm old. All I want is to be left alone. You won't eat me?" "I don't eat meat," Aerith bellowed into Poppy's face. Poppy gulped. She was beginning to feel very foolish. "Well," she offered lamely, "everybody thinks you do." "Well, then everybody eats grasshopper gas." "They do?" "How many times do I have to tell you?" Aerith screamed. "I don't eat meat." But, Poppy stammered, "didn't you just eat that fox?" "Are you crazy or something? All I did was swat him with my tail, which is what I do when creatures get fresh with me." "What about shooting your quills?" Poppy asked. "Or are you stabbing with them?" "Where'd you get that bat bilge?" "I was taught." "Poppy, that's your name, right? Quills are hair, barbed hair. I can't shoot my quills, though they fall out easy enough. The only way a quill gets into you is because I slap you, which I'll do if you mess with me. Mind, when a quill gets into you, it swells. Flex your muscles to get it out, and the barbs draw it in deeper. Hurts like the red hots. Want to see for yourself?" "No, please, please, I believe you," Poppy cried. "I didn't know that, really. I'm sorry." "Probably isn't your fault," Aerith grumbled in what was a softer tone. "I suppose you get taught that garbage in school." "We go to school at home," Poppy explained. "Lectures and tests." "Who is the world-class idiot who told you that porcupines eat mice?" Poppy was about to say her parents when she suddenly realized something she hadn't thought of before. She began to speak, but fearful of saying the name, she held back. "Well?" demanded Aerith. "Who?" Poppy leaned forward. "Mr. Ocox," she whispered. "Ocox?" Aerith yelped. "The great horned owl? Him?" Poppy nodded. "He told my parents and they told us." "Ocox," Aerith said, and he began to laugh. "What's so funny?" demanded Poppy. "Let me get this straight. Aerith said, Ocox told your folks that porcupines eat mice? Well, see, Mr. Ocox protects us from you porcupines. What's so funny about that?" "Poppy," Aerith said between fits of sputtering laughter, "he's the one who eats mice, and if there's one thing that jerk of an owl is frightened of, it's me." "You?" Poppy cried with astonishment. "Listen, Poppy, nobody messes with Erithazon dorsatum. Nobody. Fool with me, and I'll shove a quill up your snooter. The only thing that old owl wants is to protect himself. Why, he wouldn't get within a log's length of me. I may be old and fat and have a foul mouth and smell, but I can shake my tail and put it in his face. Yours too. Want to see?" "No," Poppy replied quickly. "I believe you, Aerith. I really do." "Protects you from porcupines," Aerith said with a sneer. "Frog flip. But if you believe that, what the worm water are you doing in here?" "I was trying to get to Newhouse," Poppy explained, "and honest, that fox did chase me." Aerith snorted. "But you said Ocox told you to be scared of me. Is that right?" Poppy nodded. "Poppy," Aerith said, "running in here was smart." "It was?" "Sure. The truth is, you could walk by the side of the lake with no place to hide if I were there. That jerk of an owl will do no more than look at you." "Really?" Poppy said, feeling a great sense of relief. "If there's one thing I like besides being fat, sassy, and prickly to the touch, it's going where no one wants me to. Fact is, I'm one of the few creatures in Dimwood who can protect you. I bet there's the reason he says all that earwig juice about me. As for Nearhouse, don't talk to me about going. Just go. I never tell anyone what I do. Don't you have a family? Oh, I had parents and a wife. For a while we even had kids. Quite a nice bunch. They all wandered off. We all go our own ways. Prickly. Don't you miss them? Poppy asked. I like being alone. If I see a tree I want to climb, I climb it. Chew some bark, then go to sleep. Isn't there anything in the world you love? Really love? Ah, the word love. The look of Aerith's face turned dreamy. He said, yes, he admitted, there is. Who is it? Not who, Poppy. Salt. I can't get enough of it. I'm mad for it. I'd die for it. It's because of my liver, someone told me. I don't care. I love it. Rock salt, sea salt, sweat salt, any kind of salt. He licked his lips. Don't happen to have any on you, do you? I'm sorry, I don't. You were talking about Nearhouse. You have any idea what's there? That's what I need to find out. I'll tell you one thing that's there. What? A chunk of salt as big as me. Humans put it out for deer. Can you believe it? Deer. But it's on a high, steep pole, so I can't get it. What a waste. Oh, but I do dream about it. I do. He closed his eyes. I think Ragweed would have liked you, Poppy said with admiration. But even as she spoke, a great wave of exhaustion swept over her. Please, Aerith, would you mind very much if I took a nap? Poppy, you can do what you want, but if I were you, I wouldn't sleep where you're standing. As I told you, it's my toilet, and it's too stinky, even for me. All right, class, that's the end of what we're reading today. And I hope that you get your work done and you are good for Miss Rackley. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.